And we are rolling. Hi, this is Mark Goldberg with UN Dispatch, speaking with Gillian Sorenson of the United Nations Foundation. Although, Gillian, you have a long history here at the UN. I was wondering if to start off, you can tell us a little bit about your background or your history here.
Sure, yes. I've been an Assistant Secretary General at the United Nations. I've worked closely with two Secretaries General, Boutros Ghali and Kofi Annan. Before that, for 12 years, I was the New York City Commissioner for the UN, that is head of the New York's liaison office with the largest diplomatic corps in the world. And now I'm based at the United Nations Foundation. And I'm out traveling the country, riding the circuit, as they say, speaking to all kinds of groups about the U.S. and the UN, what's at stake and why it matters, and answering 1,000 questions about it.
Excellent. And I should say, as regular viewers will know, UN Dispatch is sponsored by the UN Foundation.
Yes, indeed.
So to start off, I want to ask you, so we're in the UN right now, and you have spent a lot of your working career here in the UN. I'm wondering how you can assess the changeover of administrations within the United Nations, from Kofi Annan to Ban Ki-moon, and how the culture of the organization has changed at all.
Well, each Secretary General leads in his own way. There's no job description for Secretary General, so their personality, their priorities, their impact is rather different. But there is continuity at the same time, because the basic focus of the UN continues. That is, there's peacekeeping and disarmament and development and human rights and humanitarian relief, environmental action, and global health, and more. Those all continue. But the new Secretary General, Ban Ki-moon, of South Korea, has put special emphasis on peacekeeping, development, and climate change. And that's huge, and that has drawn together many countries, all backgrounds, all parts of the world, and we hope that'll happen.
I guess as something of an outsider, one thing I've noticed is that in many ways it seemed that Kofi Annan's tenure was marked by human rights, as sort of human rights seem to permeate almost every aspect of every agency, and in Ban Ki-moon's short tenure, climate change seems to be one of the driving goals. It seems every UN agency, no matter how somewhat obscure, like the Universal Postal Union, for one, has a climate change angle to it now.
Well, everything connects, as you know. Kofi Annan used to say human rights is a cross-cutting issue, but so is climate change. So these matters are not forgotten or dropped, but the new Secretary General does care deeply about the climate change issue and is trying to put added emphasis on that. And that's a good thing. We're not static. We're responding to what happens, the needs, the opportunities around the world, and that makes a very exciting place. And I firmly believe that it's an organization that is valuable not just for the global interest in the broadest sense, but for our national interest as well.
I guess speaking about transitions and national interests, we are now 6 months into the Obama presidency, and I'm wondering how has life changed here at the UN since the new administration has taken over?
Well, it's as if it's a new chapter. There's a new atmosphere. The new administration talks a lot about the era of engagement. They put a great value on dialogue. And our new ambassador, Susan Rice, is very active, very open, she's very cooperative. She's reached out to every nation. I think she's visited all the new ambassadors. And I think it's a very positive turn. The Obama administration sees the UN as a valuable instrument, and they want to make best use of it. And we've paid up our dues. We've overdue on that. We've paid our voluntary contribution for family planning, which was most welcome. And we're setting things in the right place. I think that when Obama comes here in the fall, in September, that he will be very well received.
So I guess one topic sometimes unexplored is what hasn't changed, what has stayed the same despite so far, say, the administration's best efforts to reform or to somehow change culture or decisions here at the UN.
Well, the UN is a bureaucracy, and as we know, bureaucracy is slow to change. But things are happening. It is more open, it is more accountable, it is leaner, and I think more effective than it used to be. The matter of Security Council reform hasn't happened yet, but I think the U.S. is looking at that, as are other major countries. There are still other internal reforms in terms of consolidating functions, of reviewing the mandates so we reduce any duplication. That's a slow process, and I think at one point some countries began to feel that it was a manipulative thing, it was self-aggrandizing for the big powers. It's not that. It is a necessary and healthy reform effort that this organization, just like any good business, would do on a regular basis. So that's a work in progress.
Yeah. I guess the Security Council reform sort of seems to get the most attention.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, are there any current plans on the table? What is the state of former plans?
Well, it's been under discussion for well over a decade, and it's going to come up again next year. First, you have two key issues. One is that the permanent five, United States, United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China, need to acknowledge and accept that there would be other permanent members, big powers presumably, who are major contributors here. They've not yet come to that. This country and some others are not.
So the United States has not said affirmatively that they are willing to accept an expanded.
But there's one other issue. If, for instance, you take a country, say India, seeks a permanent seat, who will be the first to object? Pakistan.
China.
Or if Brazil says they want a seat, who will object? Perhaps Mexico or Argentina. So you have both the internal question here, and then you have the regional question back home.
What about...
and that has to be resolved by those countries.
It seems that a lot of, aside from the Security Council, most other UN bodies organize themselves around regional groupings, regional bases. Why not have that same sort of arrangement at the Security Council?
To have regional groupings?
To have regional groupings, give those regional groupings full powers at the Security Council.
Well, there are only 15 members of the Security Council, and they do represent various regions. So you might have 3 from Africa and 3 from the Americas and so on. So a region, in that sense, would be a small handful of countries, and occasionally they do work that way. And yet they are each elected independently to serve on the Security Council. That is, the non-permanent members have 2-year terms. So they're speaking for themselves, and sometimes for their region.
So, any parting thoughts for this? It's an engaged audience. We broadcast every week. People are following issues, but not necessarily as closely as you or I. So
I would say that this is a very exciting moment for the United Nations. Very challenging. There are many demands. There are many opportunities. There are a number of major crises. But remember this: there's only one universal organization. There is only one place where all the world comes together under one roof, and it's right here at the UN. So our challenge is to make the most of this opportunity, to build partnerships, to reach across borders, to nurture friendships, and in our case, to rebuild our own stature, moral authority, and credibility. And I think we're on track, and I am hopeful that there are good days for the United Nations to come.
Thank you so much, Gillian Sorenson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to be here.
Excellent.